Hello, I'm William WhiteCrow, your host, and welcome to Quantum Quest Radio, the show that entwines science, the spirit, and time itself to bring you closer to true reality. And tonight's show is once again sponsored by the Crow's Play Store, where service and high-quality herbal products are the name of the game. And we're adding new products all the time, so check us out. And how you get there is go to williamwhitecrow.com, go to the top menu, and you'll see the Crow's Play Store. Click on it and get what you need. High-quality, fresh herbs all the time. And also from Northwest Safety and Security Company. That's it, northwestsafetyandsecurity.com, the place that takes your personal, home, and business safety and security needs seriously. You can get everything from dash cams, bug detectors, complete home surveillance systems, as well as battery-operated outdoor early warning systems for every need. And new products are being added here all the time as well. And now for the news. As you know, I keep a close eye on North Korea, and I call it North Korea versus the United States. Facts are, North Korea is pushing it a little bit too far now. And the generals and everybody, including the president of this great country here, the United States, has decided that time has basically ran out for North Korea, and they're going to go it alone if they have to. They're going to try to push China to make some changes in North Korea, but I really don't see that happening. Kim Jong-un has decided that I got nuclear weapons, I'm a big boy now. So, facts are, there is going to be some type of strike this year, some type of action taken. And I got a funny feeling that also, as I've said before, that Kim Jong-un is going to launch some of those nuclear weapons that he has. He really can't reach the United States at this particular time and really hurt us, but he can hit Hawaii, he can hit Japan, he can hit South Korea. So I'll keep bringing updates with this situation, but it's really getting tight now. And I expect a military action this year for sure. I see it as being a certainty. I've seen it a long time ago. Now for Geo Engineering. We've all followed this. Dane Wigington at geoengineeringwatch.org. He's their head researcher, and he's always bringing a lot of great information to the table. But, I've been looking further than that, too, and I see it every day around here. As a matter of fact, when we see chemtrail spraying, which is geoengineering, you can bank that 2 to 4 days after that we're going to get rain. 2 days ago they sprayed. We have rain at our house right now. I'm going to talk about some of the scientists out there that are talking about this right now. And it's really important for us to understand what's going on. We have a Dr. Watson, who is also a principal investigator and researcher for the SPICE project, which is Stratospheric Particle Injection and Climate Engineering, SPICE as they call it, in the United Kingdom. And they've got funded geoengineering projects in there and collaborates with the University of Oxford, Cambridge, Edinburgh, Bristol, and they're really getting into understanding what's going on there. But what he says, we're swimming, growing in a sea of ignorance, and this terrifies me. But doing nothing is not an option, unless we are very wrong about climate change or quickly change our ways. At some point, we are going to have to go outside with these technologies. Now, what he's talking about there, instead of just talking about them in the laboratory, they're going to take them out into the environment, which we know they already have. But even he is saying, this might not be too good of an idea here. Their schemes to tackle climate change could prove disastrous for billions of people, but might be for the good of the planet. This is what he's saying. Dr. Watson also recently told the Daily Mail that he is terrified of what this type of technology could potentially do to the Earth, and he expresses how these technologies will become inevitable if humanity fails to halt global warming. Now, this is something to me that's very, very important to look at. We're failing to turn around and do things on our own. And why are we failing? Because we're too lazy. We like our comfort zones. As long as a person has their radial tires and everything and their TV and, their games, they're not too much worried about it. They got to go by their daily lives. But facts are, people out there, we have to turn around and make some changes in our lifestyles. These things that are destroying our planet, they're spraying already up there. Now they're going to go higher into the stratosphere with balloons and continue the spraying more and more. What my question is here is this. If we're not having a warming planet and global warming, then why are they trying to stop the planet from warming by putting stuff in the atmosphere? That means that some of this warming is coming from our sun, more radiation and things like that. And we'll get on in the main body of this show. We're going to be talking about the Earth today. So it's very important for us to really take a serious look at what's going on with this geoengineering, and they're going to use it if society as a whole across the planet doesn't start making changes, getting away from fossil fuels, things of this nature, because there are bigger things happening than you know, and we're going to be bringing them to you here. Now I want to talk about the chemical attack in Syria. Everybody right off the top, and the elite want to start, and people want to start blaming Syria and Assad, for these chemical attacks. Well, we already know that the rebels previously had made a chemical attack on the population in Syria. I've seen the videos of the rebels firing it off from artillery. They're talking about planes flying over, some of the witnesses said, and dropping it. But when chaos is happening, you really don't know where anything is coming from. But we're finding out once again that it seems to be the rebels that were using the chemical weapons to make it look like Assad was, so they can take this conflict further and further and further. There's reasons that they're going into Syria and everything, the U.S. and everybody, not only to fight the ISIS regimes that are trying to control the area and everything, but there's other behind-the-scenes things going on. The chemical attack did not come from Assad. He wouldn't be that stupid to turn around and use chemical weapons when the whole world is watching. You got to think about it. Got to read between the lines. Also, I want to talk about this heat, our global climate change and everything. And I've talked to several military officials, and I know myself about heat and how conflict grows when there's heat. Now, Brigadier General Stephen Cheney, or Stephen, S-T-E-P-H-E-N, Cheney, is talking about this. He said in Syria alone that the drought has moved about 1.5 million people, have them flee their country because their animals are dying, their crops are dying, they can't do what they used to do. Also, you have the problem there that with the war and the instability. But the fact of the matter is, in all reality, hot weather, warmer weather, droughts and things like this as an accelerant to the instability of nations and large areas of countries and continents. So we need to really think about that. It's an accelerant to instability. Heat is. The harder it gets, the more people are going to be trying to move out of areas into other areas. Therefore, you're going to have cultural differences, religious differences, and we're seeing that all over the world right now. And I don't see it stopping anytime soon. The hotter it gets, the more agitated people become. You know that as well as I do. So what do you think is going to happen? More agitation, fighting for resources, control of resources on the planet and everything. I can see things getting worse, not really better in the future here, especially in this Middle Eastern area and where the drought areas are concerned. Now our friend Elon Musk. I watch this guy like a hawk. He's got some really good ideas and some really outrageous ideas that are going to work. He's that type of guy. He's looking into hooking your brains up to computers without a physical connection by simply implanting tiny electrodes into the brain. This way you can interface. This will enhance your memory and cognitive powers by merging human and artificial intelligence. So this is very interesting. And the company that he's talking about is called Neuralink, Neuralink. And I think it's something that we need to watch. I've talked a lot about transhumanism. And with transhumanism, we have a whole variety of things that we have to look at. The merging of man and machine. It's happened, it's happening more, and it's going to really kick off into the future. And I believe it's going to because of the things that are happening in society. We need to take a step up. A lot of people are talking about, if they do this, what's going to happen to their soul? And as long as a person has their understanding of who and what they are and their spiritualness about them, their understanding of humanity, I don't think we're going to have to worry too much about that. People want to enhance themselves for their own reasons, and that's their prerogative. The religions are fighting this right now. A lot of other people are fighting this right now. But I don't see it stopping. I only see it growing more and more and more. Is this the next evolutionary step of mankind? We need to think about that. Many think so, and I think that it's definitely a part of that, because we're going to have to go into space. We've got other things we need to do. Okay, with that said, I want to get on to the main body of the show. We're going to talk about our planet, its past, its present, and where we're heading. I'm going to bring in society a little bit here, because we have to, because of our actions of things that are happening. And we're going to look at this in detail, from the atmosphere to the oceans to the land to the sun to what's happening all the way around. So find a place, get some water, get something good to drink, find a comfortable place, and let's get on with this. Okay, Earth's early years from the beginning to, we've had 5 great extinctions. Ice ages, the planet in the beginning was a massive ball of molten rock and no atmosphere or anything like this at all. And as time went on, it cooled down and it had a crust. The crust was created. Then we had another impact. So the original Earth was kind of wiped out from another planetary body striking it. Well, this is where scientists, a lot of people like to theorize where our moon came from. Others theorize that this moon was captured when Tiamat and everything slammed together and by the Earth. It was captured by the Earth. So we're kind of living on Earth 2, if you wish to say that. So I want to talk about, the different aspects. It's every time that there's been a great extinction, a completely new life form has showed up after that life extinction period. Now, sometimes some of the things that made it through, usually 95 from 99%, 90% of life forms are wiped out. So those that make it through those great extinctions still evolve further and further into, their next evolutionary process, into what they're going to be. I just find it really interesting how each time one of these great extinctions have occurred, totally new life forms have been placed here on the Earth. I believe it's just a giant laboratory where these beings that actually created us, worked with us, and other beings started creating things here. They had the dinosaurs, and you had early man, you had plant life, only insects here at one time. So there's been a variation of early Earth. It was even snowball several times, a complete, just like a giant snowball floating in space, which was another period where there was great extinctions. We have to face these things. And we also know that our early atmosphere was mostly carbon dioxide and other noxious fumes and things of this nature that we couldn't breathe. Actually, oxygen in the early phases of Earth and everything, the early development, was a poisonous gas to the life forms that were here at the time. This is a fact. Scientists have already said this. And we went through several ice ages as well. One of the things that I want to bring up here is where we're heading right now. If we look at the past compared to where we are, there's been some massive changes. Back in the day, let's say during the times of the dinosaur and everything, oxygen levels were at around 36%. They're at 21% and dropping at the present time. But we'll talk about that here shortly. Okay, we went through 5 great extinctions, and we're in the process of another one right now, but let's look at the 1700s, the times on up to, everything on up to the time from the beginning of the Earth up to the 1700s. We developed, but we didn't develop that fast, when man finally came on the scene and he was created, shall we say. So there in those first times, it wasn't really, we impacted the planet, but the planet was able to absorb whatever we put out. And the reason for that is because everything we created pretty much comes from natural sources. So it would biodegrade or deteriorate over time due to weather conditions or atmospheric conditions back into the ground. Even our buildings and everything, we're seeing that everywhere. That's why scientists, when they go to the Amazon or Africa or wherever, and they find these new places, they're deteriorated pretty well. Now, the civilizations that where their architecture and their structures weren't as thick, shall we say, as those in Central and South America and Egypt and everything, they went by the wayside. They land, earthquakes, things like this, tear them down, weather patterns, the whole 9 yards. So we didn't have much of an impact during these times from in the very beginning of the 1800s. The problem is, when we got to the 1800s, we'll talk about that right now, is that coal. In Europe and everything, they found a lot of coal, just off the coast and everything in the ocean, and just laying on top of, on the bottom of the ocean, of course, but it's on the surface of the bottom. So they started collecting coal here and there. But another thing that happened was a redesign of the steam engine. Now, the steam engine made a big difference there. They used it on ships. They used it for pumps. And when they pump water out of wells, not wells, but mines and things of this nature, they were able to dig deeper and go for deeper and more resources. The steam engine allowed our ships to go a lot further. But what goes along with the steam engine? Coal. So as you can see, where a coal industry has been developed. Now, once this started in the 1800s, in the early 1800s, when the steam engine was redesigned to become more proficient, they kept doing it. You know, they upgraded it a little more and more cylinders and things of this nature, so they become very efficient at what they did. And that's where our trains and everything started using them. So our use of coal started impacting the atmosphere a little more. More inventions coming along. That, you know, we like our toys, we like our living comfortable. We created power plants and light. You know, we went through the Tesla technology time period and Edison and all these great inventors of the time. So from the 1800s on up, our population began to grow as well. And that is a big thing where all of a sudden we started affecting our environment, our planetary environment, more and more and more. The larger our population grew, and this goes for today, the larger our population grows, the facts are the more resources we need. Now, some scientists have talked by the 21st century, I'm going to say before, that humanity is going to need another planet with its resources. The facts are we live in an enclosed system. The Earth is an enclosed system, 100%. We can't restock it, you know, oh, let's go like stores, I mean, shelves in a store. You know, you just don't go restock our resources. We have to leave the planet, literally. Grab more resources and come back to this planet. Well, my thing is, if we're going to leave the planet, why come back? Use the resources that are out there and stay out there. I have always been kind of that way about space flight and getting off this planet. Facts are, my friends, that solar systems and planets do not last forever. The age of our Earth and the age of our solar system is older than they're telling you right now. That's why a lot of our governments are building underground bunkers, and they're really wanting to get off this planet right now, looking for new worlds, and Mars is one of those. We have a lot going on Mars, and I'm not going to talk about that in that show because that's another show. So here we are from the 1800s right on up today. You know, we've continually developed more technologies, and a lot of these technologies are bad. They polluted our atmosphere, they polluted our waterways, our land, everything of this nature. So we have to stop and really take a look right now and say, hey, you know, what is really going on with our planet? Where is our planet right now? And that's something that we really need to look at in detail. Now, during the show, I'm going to throw a whole bunch of stuff at you, and I'm going to be cross-referencing. And you're going to begin to see a whole picture. It's not a pretty picture, but I will tell you that there is light at the end of the tunnel. And we're going to do another show on that, what we can do. This show is just dedicated to right now to what's really happened to our planet. People really have to stop and take a look at it and wake up, you know, quit sleeping and make some changes in your personal life, you know, on the things that you're using. Don't buy cheap stuff. I buy cast iron for skillets, you know, or stainless steel, something that's going to last me a long time. I don't try to buy anything that is only going to last a year or two. And that accrues right down to electronics and things of that nature. So we're going to talk about that right now. You know, what changes are taking place. And actually, my friends, these changes are taking place so fast that the scientists are having a hard time keeping up now. Okay, let's look at things first. We're going to look at our atmosphere, as I said. So before we go too far, we need to know what our atmosphere makeup is. So let's touch base on that. Excuse me. You know, there's different levels and there's different chemicals. So the Earth's atmosphere is approximately 250 to 300 miles thick. It consists of the exosphere, thermosphere, mesosphere, stratosphere, and troposphere, which we live in the troposphere and we fly in the stratosphere. So mainly we're dealing with the troposphere. It also contains several gases in it, 78% nitrogen, around 21 to 20%. We're losing oxygen now. So I'm going to say 20% oxygen, and about 0.93% argon, and we have, as they say, is 0.038% carbon dioxide, which that's went way up. It's past that by far now. And water vapor and hydrogen, among other gases, exist in very small amounts. But the atmosphere water vapor is on the increase as well, so we have more of a dimming effect that's helping along with the geoengineering that they're doing out there. There is no real distinct boundary between our atmosphere and space, but it's accepted at about 68 miles up from the surface as the altitude for the separation of, shall we say, space, the final frontier, and our our atmosphere period that our planet is surrounded with. I'm going to just touch on the two levels here, that I have already, but the main thing is stratosphere and troposphere. That's where we live at. And the facts are that our atmosphere at those two levels right there are only in between 4 and 12 miles thick, the shortest, because it fluctuates. So the average is 7 to 12, but at time it drops on down to 4 miles. Now think about that. Figure out 4 miles on the ground from point A to point B and stand that vertical, from 4 to 12 miles. That's a distance less than the distance from where my house is to Redding, California. So that is the usable atmosphere that humankind and all other life forms on this planet has to use. Now, that's kind of a scary situation once you start thinking about, well, that's all you have. Up above that, in the stratosphere and stuff, you have less oxygen. It's colder. We're at about 14.6 psi right here. When you get up into the stratosphere and everything, you're looking at maybe 10 psi, and very little oxygen compared to the troposphere where we're at right now. And facts are that our atmosphere has went through a massive chemical change. We got a lot of things happening there. We got the CO2 at 400 plus now. What was the last? I think it was 410 to 420 right now in the atmosphere, the level. Methane levels are rising as well. We're having acid rain. That hasn't stopped. They just don't talk about it. Our planet is definitely warming, and it's warming from several things, so our atmosphere is warming as well. Now, if they're doing geoengineering and they're spraying in the atmosphere to keep the planet from warming, that should be telling you right off the top that we have this heat coming, or radiation coming from outside of the planet to the planet, or they wouldn't be spraying things in the atmosphere to try to stop it. This is a fact that a lot of people, they miss. There are other factors, of course. There's a lot of factors in why our atmosphere and why our planet is warming, and we'll touch upon them, CO2 being one. Our atmosphere and ocean is kind of caught in a loop here, and I'll discuss that. The facts of the matter is we have volcanism that is increased. We have whatever is affecting us and attacking us, shall we say, from the outside that they're spraying in the atmosphere to try to stop this heat, so we don't have a runaway Venetian effect, as they call it. And a lot of scientists think that that's where we're heading. Our ozone isn't healing as much as they say. We're never going to go back to pre-1984 levels of the ozone. Isn't going to happen. There's just too many factors in there that's, not unless we stop everything we're doing right now that's putting CO2 and other chemicals in the air. Just as in CO2, there are a lot of other chemicals out there that they're not telling you about or bringing to the surface that is helping create the problems that we're having right now in our atmosphere. A lot of people have no idea that we have an ozone hole at the North Pole too. One at the South Pole, one at the North Pole. Also, people don't understand that if you, let's say, compress the ozone layer, it's only about a 1/4 inch thick. Maybe at the most a 1/2 inch. So that tells you how much ozone we have out there. And there are certain areas right now that when satellites go around the Earth, like in the South Atlantic anomaly area, they have to turn their satellites off. And they redirect planes around certain areas because of the magnetic field, because of the atmosphere weakening, a lot of things. Now, I just brought up the weakening magnetic field. The facts are that they believe that it's about 30% gone right now, and that every 10 years it drops by about 5%. Now it's happening. It's weakening 10 times faster than they thought that it was. So that's something that we really need to look into. And I want you to do your own research. I want you to take this information and go out there and look and see what's going on. Because if you have a thinning atmosphere, less oxygen all of a sudden, we'll get into why that's happening, a weakening magnetic field, your ozone layer and your atmosphere thinning, you've got some serious problems. Now they're doing the chemtrail spraying and everything out there to try to fix things, but everything that they're spraying it with is detrimental to human life, plant life, and everything else. So, as I read in the beginning from the doctor, what he said, Dr. Wilson, what he was saying, if people aren't going to do something to change their ways of doing things and stop using fossil fuels and these other things, adding CO2 and other chemicals to the air, then they're going to have to do this to save the planet. Interesting. One of the first people that I've listened to that is talking about that. If we don't make the change, then the scientists and governments are going to go ahead full blast on this geoengineering program. That, my friends, we don't want, because the chemicals and things, as I said, that they're spraying and putting into our atmosphere is detrimental to human life. Period. That's what it really is. And the other thing here is, our atmosphere has a lot to do with our oceans, because our oceans turn around and take the CO2 and other chemicals out of the atmosphere through the carbon cycle. It goes into the ocean, and it turns around and gets filtered, and then it comes back as a clean ocean, shall we say. Well, we're putting so much CO2 and other chemicals into the atmosphere and into the oceans, plastics and everything else. The ocean is having a hard time fixing itself and healing itself. So we have some loops here. When the atmosphere warms and gets warmer and warmer and warmer with the CO2 and everything, this CO2 goes in the ocean, which in turn warms the ocean as well. Now we have many other factors, volcanism and things of this nature, and also what they're trying to keep out of our planet from the chemtrail spraying, affecting our oceans as well. So continued warming and acidification is the key here. It's going to continue to happen. The more CO2, the more other chemicals that we put into the atmosphere are going to go into our ocean. It's part of the cycles, my friends. We've even found out that the North Atlantic current is slowed down by 20%, maybe a little more. Some are saying over 25% now. I'm still doing more studies on that, finding out exactly what's going on. The bad thing here is because of our oceans now, warming, the phytoplankton, the basic source of food for life itself in the ocean, is being damaged because of the CO2 and the acidification and the warming of our oceans right now. And red tide, the red tides, because of water being warmer, are going crazy right now, and we're going to see a continuance of this. That's all there is to it. The more CO2 increases, the warmer things are going to get. There are, like I said, other things, and we'll touch on those as we go through here, that is helping this warming. Ever since March 2011 also, our oceans have been hit with the Fukushima radiation. And as we all know, that has been a big media blackout. They do not want to tell you what's really happening out there. We already know now. It's funny because people usually find out and understand what's going on before the governments are going to admit, or scientists are going to admit anything to you. Part of the big problem with the Fukushima radiation situation is bioaccumulation. We're seeing mass sea life die-offs, and many of them are dying from things that usually normally don't harm them. But anytime you have a bioaccumulation of radiation, it takes the immune system of whatever it is that's taking that radiation in and damages it, so they get weaker and weaker. So smaller and smaller viruses or bacteria can affect them and kill them off. This is a bad deal. We also have increased volcanism under the ocean. We're having methane hydrate melt-offs as well because of the ocean being so warm. But from Alaska all the way to the tip of South America, the fish farming has been decimated. And I mean every type you can think of. And now we're finding out that the clam populations in these fish farms, even the little ones, are dying off because it's too warm, it's too acidic. And also now we have to take into account of the Fukushima radiation. Now that we know that the reactor core has dropped into the ocean, there is no way for the next 40 to 50 years that they're going to be able to stop that. So that means more massive accumulation of these radioactive materials in the Pacific Basin. We're seeing coral reefs all across the planet dying off, bleaching out. There is a few spots that you see coral reefs still existing, but as a majority across the central part of the planet all the way around, especially in Australia now too, these coral reefs are dying off, and they're dying off quicker than ever expected. Scientists are kind of freaking out about this because once the coral reefs die off, that's 90% of the fish life depend on those coral reefs, and the deeper fish depend on the fish that depend on those coral reefs. So you see we have pretty much a runaway situation here, meaning that our food supply from the ocean is going to drop quicker than we expect as well. And scientists and fisheries already know that the drop in our food possibilities from the ocean are going to be minimal in the not too distant future if things keep going the way they are. Facts are, if you kill off the lower forms of life, just as on land, if you got a coyote and rabbit population, You know, that rabbit population, if it grows, it grows a coyote, and then all of a sudden the rabbit population drops, and then you start having the coyotes die off, and because there's no food for them. Well, in this case, if there's less and less and less fish, feeder fish, and microbes and stuff for the fish to eat, the larger life forms in the ocean are going to start dying off as well. And we're seeing this in beached whales. The walrus and sea lion populations are dropping. The salmon populations for this year alone have been decimated. Millions of salmon haven't even made it to their streams. They're finding them floating in the ocean, just dead. You know, so this is something we have to look at too. We got some problems here, and nobody wants to face it. And most people don't want to change any of the things they're doing. So you might as well look at this type of stuff continuing on. And that's very, very unfortunate. You know, with this happening, there's something that affects us all, and that's the production of oxygen. Our oceans produce 75% of our oxygen, and they've warmed to the point now, and the acidification is starting to affect the life in the ocean that produces the oxygen. Now, this is bad news. And I've said this before, you know, scientists are now admitting that the ocean, including land masses, but mainly the ocean right now, is producing way less oxygen for us and all the other life forms on this planet than it ever has before. We're in some dire straits as far as oxygen production. And now they're admitting that our atmosphere is losing almost a percentage point of oxygen now per decade. So we're at 21%. We need 16% to survive. How long do you think, how many decades is it going to take once the ocean is damaged to the point where it's producing less oxygen faster? You see where I'm going here. With these warming oceans and situations, certain things can only produce at certain temperatures. The facts are, I'll tell you something about plant life on land. A plant will use the CO2 in the atmosphere until we get up to around 100 degrees. Then it starts breathing oxygen too, and not, using the CO2. It starts letting CO2 out. So, people need to do their science here and understand that just because they're plants doesn't mean that they're always going to be taking the CO2 out of the air. Once the planet gets to a certain point of temperature, plants start using the oxygen and not the CO2. It's bad all the way around. Also, with the warming, as I've said, the methane hydrates. We've got massive global methane hydrate releases right now. And scientists are saying that they're expecting one day just for all this methane hydrate, a little bit warmer, these oceans, is going to go into a massive, something like we've never seen before, release of methane hydrates into the atmosphere. And since methane and methane hydrates are lighter than air, it's going to go straight up into the atmosphere and create a, shall we say, a little layer, like a glass window around the planet in a sense. Things are only going to get warmer. Methane is 20 or more times a more potent greenhouse gas than CO2. And scientists are saying that once this giant melt-off, and it happens, the straw that broke the proverbial camel's back, and once this large methane hydrate release happens, that it could, and more than likely will, surpass the CO2 level. That is an extinction level event, my friends, and it seems we're heading that way. Matter of fact, we are in the middle of a sixth grade extinction right now. And this is where the ocean and the atmosphere works together now. I want to talk about that. The atmosphere warming, it turns around and warms the land. And in areas where there's tundra, we're finding methane blowouts there. So, and as things warm significantly and create these blowouts, there's more CO2 released from the ground itself. A lot of people aren't talking about that, but it's a fact. Do the research and you'll find out that it's very true. At the same time, all this methane is being released, more CO2 is being released, and plus we're not going to give up our cars or coal-burning power plants. The elite aren't anyway, so we're going to continue this process that we're going into. And that's why I told everybody Trump is a double-edged sword. He really doesn't believe in the environmental things that are changing right now, or he believes that there's nothing we can do about it. That's a dangerous situation, because he's going to allow the scientists to do more geoengineering and things of this nature, hoping to fix things. Reminds me of a historical event a long time ago. Some ancient records talking about another species of beings coming here because they'd screwed their planet up and their planet's atmosphere using technology as well. So if we have on the land methane releases and oceanic methane hydrate releases, you can only imagine how quick the methane's going to climb on into the future. And it being a worse greenhouse gas means that it's just going to help the increase of heat on the planet. As I'm going through here, I'm trying to talk about all the different things that are also creating the CO2 besides us. There's a lot of factors, and as we'll go on, we'll talk about that. So here we are with the atmosphere, more CO2, more methane in it, more cars, more people, they need more resources, more factories, more power generation using nuclear energy, which is bad, more coal power plants, China building one a week over there, and they think that they're going to help the environment and fix the environment. No, it's actually making it worse. And now with Trump in, he's talking about, we can do more coal and this and that. Come on, this is a lose-lose situation if we do this and we don't stop it. It's very important for us to understand that, because if we don't, there is no future for the children. There is no future for us. We have to have a massive change of mindset. Our whole paradigm has to change. Now let's take a look at our land and surface areas, the areas where we live. We don't live under the ocean or, on top of the ocean in floating cities. We live on the land, on islands and continents and things of this nature. So where are we at there? We're having a lot more volcanic and earthquake activity. I attribute this because scientists just turned around and agreed with something that I've said has been happening for over 25 years. We're having some pretty serious core changes right now. They found a river of magma that is running high speed, and it's changed its format, its direction of travel, shall we say, up to a little more north. So we got some serious things happening with our core. I even heard that a large part of the continental plate underneath the area where Oklahoma and they're doing all this fracking material work, I should say, is peeling off and going towards the center of the core now. So not only do you have the fracking destabilization because it cracks structure, we got the peeling off of part of the continent down there heading towards the center of the earth. It'll melt down, of course, and things of this nature. But anytime you have that type of stuff happen, you have magnetic changes, you have increased volcanic activity, earthquake activity, the pull of the moon, and the alignment of planets. There's a lot of things that can cause this. But the facts are, we know for a fact, scientific fact, volcanic and earthquake activity is increasing. Our core is changing. We're having massive methane blowouts now in Siberia. I just touched on that because of warming weather. And that's on the surface. That's just the air. Warm enough now to start melting off all this tundra and allowing these buildups of methane that they blow out. And when they blow out, we've already seen what happens. A massive hole, a massive release of methane into the atmosphere. And they can hear these blasts take place up to 60 miles away. Now, that's loud. That means that there's a tremendous amount of methane down there that's been pressurized. And when it blows out, it, boom, just like a giant bomb. We have to look at, we're having the acid rains that are affecting the plant life all over the place as well, especially around cities. Our sinkholes are really, I haven't seen anything like it. I'm 63 years old. And everything that we are seeing happening in our atmosphere, on our land, in our oceans, has happened during my lifetime. That's insane. In one lifetime, my lifetime. The thing about it is, like, these sinkholes aren't just happening in one place, they're happening everywhere. Everywhere. People are not expecting it. They wake up in the morning, their cars are gone. Sometimes whole houses. Sometimes part of subdivisions are gone. In different countries, I've seen this. So we have some serious destabilization of our surface taking place here. And because of the heating of the oceans, because of the heating of the atmosphere and the methane releases and everything, we're really, and man's encroachment upon our natural environment. The bigger a city gets, the more environment we're taking away from Mother Nature. You know, all the natural aspects, the plant life, the insects, the animals, the birds, everything. Everything is slowly disappearing here. We're seeing mass extinctions of pretty much every type of life that there is, with the exception of insects. Now, insects are growing exponentially, and a lot of these things that are coming into our areas now used to be in the tropical regions are bringing with them illnesses and things of that nature. So we really have to be careful. But, you know, we have this sixth great extinction that's taking place, and we're on that list. You know, if we're not going to change, and they're going to have to turn around and start spraying, doing more geoengineering at the stratospheric level, way up high in the stratosphere, we got some problems. And as the good doctor said earlier, and I mentioned this, you know, if the people aren't going to make the changes, then the government and the scientists are going to take over, and they're going to increase this geoengineering of our entire planet's atmosphere. They're worried. This isn't just for military action or anything like that. We got some serious things happening with our atmosphere and our planet right now that if we don't put ourselves in check, we might not have that atmosphere in the next 100 years or so. You know, also on our planet, the plant life that is dying off. Plants can't just get up and move like animals. So when a drought hits an area, and it is hitting the Amazon, and look at Australia and many other areas, and plant life is dying off. Now the funny thing there, the plant life on the surface produces the other 25% of oxygen that we need to survive. So if it's not putting out what it needs to oxygen-wise anymore, so the planet can continue on, and we can live as other life forms live on our planet. We got some issues that we need to look at here. So if our ocean isn't producing the oxygen it normally does, and it's getting less and less, and if our land isn't producing the oxygen that it needs, that other 25%, because the ocean produces 3/4, what do you think the future is going to hold? Less oxygen in the atmosphere, more CO2, more methane. You get the picture here? You see what's happening? We are not good stewards. We have not been good stewards of the planet at all. And it's costed us, and it's going to cost us more. Now, the thing about this, these are scientific facts we're dealing with here. These aren't something that people just, oh, I think this is happening. You know, this is really happening right now. And I don't care if you believe in global cooling. I don't care if you believe in global warming. If you want to argue semantics of words on how we call something, you're part of the problem. You really are. Because we got some big things coming. If you got children, you better look into this stuff. Because if you're not, it's obviously you really don't care about your children and things enough to make changes in your own life so they're going to have a better future, or the possibility of a better future. Now, I've went to many areas and went fishing in areas that I did as a kid. I can't catch a variety of fish, can't catch a size of fish, and some fish you just don't even catch here anymore. And this is all up and down the West Coast and other areas that I've went. All of our lakes and rivers are warming. The small microbes and everything that are in those rivers and lakes for fish to use and live off are going away. They're dying off. If it wasn't for restocking of our lakes and rivers, they probably wouldn't have any fish in them today. That's the only thing that's keeping a lot of lakes and rivers going is the restocking programs that the Department of Forestry and Fish and Game or whatever is doing. And that's globally. You know, and I haven't even touched on the dead zones. You know, what's happening with those right now in our lakes and our streams and, you know, off of our coast. And that's a lot of that is due to agricultural runoff. Let's look at the Gulf of Mexico. Coming down the Mississippi River and everything, there's 100 miles out there that is turning into a dead zone. Very little oxygen off the coast of California and Oregon, same thing. All the dead zones of our oceans and you know, big lakes and things of this nature, because of the red tide and because of the warming of the waters and everything, we're finding out that these things are growing faster. Another thing that's growing faster than we ever expected. And there is no end to those. It's another thing that scientists are talking about. Now I want to talk about one thing here in the ocean. It's talking about the blob, this warming blob, and scientists are going, what the heck is happening here? You know, it's producing ozone. And it's bad ozone, it's surface ozone. That we don't need. It's creating respiratory problems already for people. This is a fact. This isn't just something hypothetical. You know, this Pacific blob is creating more red tide, is damaging, the fish farms in a big way, because this is getting larger and larger and larger. It used to be 2 small blobs, now it's come together. Scientists aren't sure what's going on. I'll give you my little theory here. If we have the radiation coming, you have salt in the water, you have radiation coming in, all of a sudden you have volcanic eruptions as well. All this is going to work together to create more heat. So we're getting a larger and larger and larger mass die-offs of sea life population and populations that depend on that sea life for their livelihood. I believe that there's possibly a lot of volcanic activity going down there. I'm talking to some scientists now. They haven't went into those areas and went underwater and really looked now. They're getting ready to do some studies on that. But I think that we got a problem in that area, planetary-wise. Why is it just that one spot that is warming as heavy as it is right now? The facts are, is it because of our weakening magnetic field too? The radiation's coming in and the sun, our planet is tilted more. We know our axis is off now. Every time we have an 8+ something magnitude quake, we get a little more of a wobble and a little more of a tilt. That's another problem that's happening. That's another reason our planet is warming quicker and quicker in some areas, is because our axis is now tilted more. So we're facing the sun just a little bit more, the northern regions, and that's not a good thing. That is helping massive glacial melt-offs and things of this nature. So as you can see, there's a lot of things happening here. It isn't just mankind, but mankind and our use of fossil fuels has made a big impact. We have enhanced a lot of systems, natural systems on our planet, and we better wake up to that fact. If you're one of the people out there that think, oh no, we couldn't have done that, planet's too big, then you're living in the Stone Age, because we're affecting our planet in more ways than one. And and the higher our population goes, and the more resources that we use, the more we're going to affect our planet in negative ways. Need to wake up to that, folks. Now, I know this is just an hour show, and I really can't touch on everything that I'd like to, but I'm trying to hit the hard points here for you to understand what's going on. We have to really change some things, and screw the political situations, the religious rhetoric, and all these other things. We have to come together as a humanity and start looking and saying, all these other things are detrimental. We're worried about politics. We're fighting wars with one another over resources and everything. We're arguing over border fences instead of worrying more about what's going on with the planet. Can the border fence feed you? Can our being a Democrat or a Republican feed you? No, it can't. We have to come together at a local community and start going back to like in World War II, victory gardens, and growing our own food. And the problem here it also is getting off the grid. We all need to get off the grid. We all need to produce our own power. And there's many ways to do it, alternative ways to do power. See, there is a light at the end of the tunnel. But we have to act now. If we don't act now, there isn't going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. There's going to be a runaway greenhouse effect. I don't care if you like that word or not, or we can call it global change, whatever you want to call it, but it's going to run away. And it will get warmer and warmer and warmer. I don't care who says we might be going into an ice age right here. That's not the facts. For the first time in human history, our jet stream literally dropped down below the equator. When it does that, it introduces more warmer air into the Arctic Circle, the North Pole area, things of this nature. So our jet stream has been massively changed. Look what's happened into the central part of the United States and the Northeast. There has to be areas where there's rebalancing is trying to take place. And that's why we're seeing all the chaotic weather patterns in different areas right now. It's because the planet's trying to rebalance itself. We have the Arctic vortex coming down. The jet stream was a lot different at one time. And the way the jet stream goes, the weather goes. So instead of ripping across the top of Northern California, it's going up above, coming down through Alaska into Canada, and dropping down on the other side of the Rocky Mountains. Which is interesting. And it dips way down into the continental United States and then back up and goes across the ocean. Well, we know for a fact that the Gulf Stream current stopped for about 12 days right after the BP oil spill. I think it was a year or two after that. And that was due to the chemicals and things that were in the water there at that time. Our global currents are slowing down. This is a well-known fact right now. And then again, also scientists feel that there's really no end in sight with the all the meltwater coming off Greenland is creating that cool spot up there that they always talked about. And once that current slows down more and more, meaning the North Atlantic current and the Gulf Stream current, facts are Gulf Stream current don't even reach across the Atlantic anymore. So the warmer weather for the Europe and everything is really counting on the North Atlantic conveyor system there. And that is slowing down. What's going to happen when it gets down to about 30, 40, 50% slowdown? Interesting. So we are in some dire straits here, and we have to face up to it. And the only way we're going to change that is the population. Governments aren't going to change diddly. They don't care. They're money makers, and they'll make their ships or their craft, their homes, and however they need to survive. It's the little man out there. It's me and you and Jane Doe or John Doe down the street. We're the ones that's going to be hurting from all these changes that are taking place, because we're not going to be able to conform quick enough. And just like plants or animals, if you can't conform quick enough to what's going on in the world around you, you become like the dinosaurs, a thing of the past, just memories. And there's another fact here. Our sun is changing. Different types of rays coming out of the sun. A lot of people, the scientists are actually saying the sun's entire makeup is changing now. It's nothing like that they've seen before. They say highs and low minimums. Well, it's went into a new phase now. So this is another reason why they're using geoengineering, putting stuff in the atmosphere. If we're not having a global warming problem, why the hell turn around and put all this stuff in the atmosphere to stop the warming? Now think about that. It doesn't make any sense to do this if we don't have an external source that's helping heat us as well, besides what we're doing to it. Facts are, what's happening to our planet right now, our governments are in resource control mode. They know things are happening. They know things are happening quicker. They know of future events. I know of future events because of the programs I've been in. But they know of future events where this planet is heading. And a lot of people want to be fluffy about it, and everything's going to be okay, and smile and just pray. Well, prayers are great, but prayers aren't going to make the changes that are going to be needed. We have to make those changes that are needed. And if we don't make those changes that are needed, then everything is going to continue on as it is. And we will become, in this next extinction we're going through right now, the 6th great extinction, we just might be a part of that. We have a weakening magnetic field. It's weakening faster than they ever dreamed of. Every decade we're losing 5% of it. If 30% is gone, every decade you're losing 5% of it. Do the math. When is it going to be, how long is it going to take for that magnetic field to be down close to zero? For this polar shift, this magnetic field shift that we're going to have. And we are in the middle of right now. We have to be realistic about it. Higher radiations of things, so we got to build our cities different, build our homes different. We're going to have to live life different, period. The levels of cancer, illnesses are going up. Our environment is attacking us right now because we haven't been paying too much attention. We've damaged it to a point. A lot of the foods and the chemicals we're putting into our bodies right now are detrimental to humanity all the way around. I've watched a lot of shows, and they talk about, the planet with no people, that it'll heal itself and everything will work out. Well, is it going to take that? Is it really going to take that for the planet to get better? No humans? What do you think? That's a question that I pose to you. I also pose to you out there, what things can you do as an individual to get away from fossil fuels and things of this nature? Really, it comes down to what we buy and what we do. If the corporations are putting out brand new cars and gasoline and we're buying that only and not going into these alternative technologies, we're only helping things happen. Story Moosegrave is a scientist. He's been up in space many times. He's even said that the color of the planet is changing from this pristine blue and green and everything that it was. It's dimming more. The plant life is being harmed. The atmosphere is dirtier. Things of this nature. And Elon Musk, he's on the money here. He wants to get off the planet. Because why? He's done the research. He knows what's going on. He sees what mankind's going to have to do in order to survive, as I do too. So it's going to take that fine blend of old-fashioned ways of modern technology. It isn't just going back to the old ways. We've done some pretty bad damage to the planet. We're going to have to change a lot of things. Our use of power, the types of power we use. We got just some tremendous things that we're going to have to do on the personal level. But we can do it. And when a person stops and says, oh, there's nothing I can do and we're doomed, well, that's when you're doomed. It's people that are optimistic and say we can change things, we can make life better. And this goes for every spiritual type person out there. It doesn't matter what your belief is. If we turn around and are just fluffy spiritual people and not realizing the reality of the situation, and the aliens are going to come and save us, or Jesus is going to come and save us, and this and that, you better think again. Because any intelligent species is not going to come down and help you do anything until you've taken the steps yourself to correct the bad things that are happening to you and your planet. I got this firsthand. Let's just put it that way. So, ladies and gentlemen, it's about time that everybody starts really looking at themselves, looking at their local communities, what you can do to change things, work at the local level legally, and your voting and things of this nature to change things in your local area, because there's nothing we can do to change things en masse across the planet. We have to start with our local communities. Start going off the main grid. Start producing all of your own power. We have the technologies to do this right now, and newer technologies are coming up all the time. The facts are the human race has to take the next step up. If it doesn't take the next step up in civilization and our way of thinking and our intellect and sciences, we're going to destroy ourselves. That's just my feeling. I can see, like I said, I'm 63 years old, and I've seen every single thing that is happening to us right now with the global weather pattern changes and everything. When I was a kid, everything was stabilized. Where is it right now? It is not stabilized by far, and it's getting destabilized every single year more and more and more. So I really want you to think about this. You know, it's something that you need to teach your children and your grandchildren. We have to go a different direction. It's nice to have the nice cars, and it's nice to have this and this and this, you know, but the facts of the matter are we need to start investing our time and our energies and our monies and technologies and education and things, so we're not going to get caught in this loop that the elite like to keep us in, you know. And it's very important to understand that you can step away from this matrix that they have created for us and make many, many things more beneficial for us and future generations. And that's pretty much where we're at right now. I know we only have an hour, and it's the end of the show time right now. We only got a few minutes left, and I give you guys this challenge, you know. Start educating yourself. Start looking at things that you can do for the future. Start teaching your children and your grandchildren to go into these newer technologies, to get away from, you know, fossil fuel use, to get away from coal-burning power plants. They're our next politicians. We need the planet to be made better, not worse. And with that said, I know it's kind of some dire news here, but there is a light at the end of the tunnel, and we can make some big changes, and we're, you know, we only have maybe 100 years or so of these types of things happening, and things will get better. But we have to do that now. So with that said, this is William WhiteCrow saying, you know, be well, look towards the future, educate yourself, and do everything you can to turn around and try to make things better. Write letters to your congressmen, fight the system, you know, make them understand what's going on. Trump is a double-edged sword. I've always said that. So this is William WhiteCrow with Quantum Quest Radio saying, until next time, you have a great evening, and get out there and do something. Just sitting on our butts talking about things really don't do anything. It takes action. So y'all have a good day, and until next time, hang in there. Oh, there is one other thing I'd like to say before the show ends here. Starting next week, we're going to start having guests. And boy, we've got a lineup for you. I'm not going to say who the guests are going to be right now. It's going to be kind of a surprise for the next few shows until I get myself organized better. But we're going to have some great guests, and it's going to be everybody from talking about from UFOs to the environment, doctors, scientists, military personnel, and a lot of great friends that I have out there that I've interviewed before. So stay tuned, keep checking in, and we've got some great shows on the way for you. So have a good day. All right, bye-bye.